Life lessons, logistics. Let's go.
Hello, everyone. I am the Bodacious Cowboy. Welcome to the Storytelling Chronicles. I have a great guest today, Mark Milivojevic. He is the branch manager for TPZ Logistics. Let's welcome Mark in. Hey, Mark.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
I am doing well. Thanks for joining the show today. I know we were talking in the green room before, and you were I wouldn't say harassing me, but you were asking me some pretty good questions. And I was like, hey, listen, you know what? If you want to ask me those type of questions when we go live, please do. It's always a two-way street on my show. I don't care what kind of questions are asked, but hey, man, I appreciate you joining. So tell everybody about who Mark is.
Well, I look at myself, and I think other people would agree. I'm a very energetic, outgoing guy. I always treat every day as a gift because you never really know when it's your last day. And I actually think that the human potential is endless. And I think a lot of people, unfortunately, they actually don't realize their full potential, lazy or whatever, you know. But I've got a passion for people. I actually really like meeting with people, all walks of life. I don't care what your political viewpoints are. I don't care what kind of food you eat, none of that matter. I like dealing with people. And I think that's why I gravitated to logistics, because we all share a common ground, which is I need you to give me my stuff. How am I going to get my stuff? So,
Right.
yeah.
So how did you get, I mean, everybody has a starting point, when it comes to logistics. How the hell did you get involved with it? I mean, what was that turning point in your life?
That's a good question.
This is
I think people who end up in logistics, they get awkwardly thrown into a direction and they get told, don't turn around, just keep walking forward. You'll find the exit, but there never is an exit. You just find another door. But so I was actually, I've been in sales my whole life, and it's a bit of a personal background, but I was licensed to actually be a police officer in Ontario many years ago. I got my chief of police license, and I was going to go to Kingston to be an OPP. And long story short, I was in court with my son at the time, the previous relationship.
Yeah.
And the Crown had it that if dad doesn't have a 9-to-5 routine, he can't have the ability to see his son. So I opened up a paper and saw that a company called Rome Transportation in Ontario was hiring for a freight broker. I knew nothing about it, but it said 9-to-5, Monday to Friday. Now, unbeknownst to me, did I not realize that the cop job would have been a lot more of a better hours than it is being logistics, because you're on call 24/7. But anyway, I always tell my son Jackson, I said, because of you, son, you gave me a gift. Ironically, me having to go through some hard times, becoming a dad and having to go to court, it gave me a gift, and I had to thank him. But you don't know this at that time. You get resentful, you blame the world for your problems, whatever. So anyway, that's how I got into this. And then once I got into brokerage, this would have been 2015-ish, 2014. Then I thought, I don't know anything about customs. Why do I keep seeing all these entry lines, these ACE manifests? What is all this about? So I go to work for a customs place. Sit down doing entry lines. Most boring auditor job. But you start realizing, hey, these two highlighters are the same. But customs is going to say that this is a different color, so that's a different entry code than this one.
Right.
So then you start to realize, why do things get stuck at the border? Well, why is there waiting fees and all? Then I thought, okay, I did that for about a year. Then I'm like, I don't know how to actually load a truck. I don't know how to shunt. I don't know how to warehousing. So then I went to go work for Cooper Brothers Trucking, which had a similar business model of Polaris, from Southern Ontario into the U.S., kind of doing consolidated north and southbound. So figured out what it meant to actually do manifested bill of ladings, dock sheets, how to properly load freight, get my forklift license, do some shunting, Um, and then the rest is kind of history. I've kind of bounced between different companies and headhunters calling me. Uh, and back then, people had said, once you think it's bad, you're kind of jumping from one place to another. Whereas I'm kind of like, no, because it gave me the experience I need. So now you can understand, Jeff, when I get on the phone,
Yeah.
people know that I'm not some a-hole sales guy because I actually understand what they're going through. I actually know what the freight looks like. I know what it means to be a purchaser or a controller or a dock manager, fleet manager. I understand all these things. Where I don't want to generalize, but my personal opinion is a lot of these people that get into sales for logistics, they've never even used a pump jack. They have no idea, And so for me, I feel like it's important that if somebody gets into this industry, try to get out there, even if it's free, you don't get paid. The experience is exponential. You need to get out there and just call companies and say, hey, I'm in brokerage, but I want to know what freight looks like. Do you mind if I kick tires around your shop for a few days a week? I just want to see. It can't hurt. It really can't hurt, So
Yeah, I mean that's there's nothing like being in the trenches and seeing how things tick and they jive together. As I say, the mechanisms of logistics are wide and far, and the more that you know about them and how they interact with each other, the better off that you are, especially when you're prospecting, or even if you're lucky enough to get a customer on board, you start diving in and they start using different terms. You're like, yeah, I kind of get that. I understand that for sure.
yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, the rest is kind of history. It's just like I had told you before we get on this call, you get to a point where all of that hard work has compounded and you're kind of just like, I'm actually kind of relaxed right now because I've kind of figured out my career. But that can also be sometimes a negative because if you're too comfortable, then there's no growth. And that's something that, Jason Nesbitt, the owner of TPZ and Trucking Pros, he's instilled in me is you have to constantly get out of that comfort zone because you're never going to grow. And it's the growth zone where you actually uncover your potential. And sometimes when you get a shipper that throws you a curveball you've never seen, ironically, you're going to help that shipper because you're going to both work on the solution together. And I think that that's something that freight forwarders need to realize is it's okay to tell a customer, I don't have the answer. That's fine. They'll respect you for that.
Absolutely.
But tell, you know what? Gee, I've never seen this before. Do you mind if I dive into this? Because I really want to figure this out. And let's come back to the drawing board. You're more personable. You're more honest. Whereas if you lie to them and say, oh, yeah, I've done this before, I can fix this, you're going to fall flat on your ass within 30 seconds is what's going to happen,
Quicker than that. And then once you get that reputation, you can't get out of it,
Yeah.
When you reach out to, a customer or a prospect, you have to be willing to say, I'm wrong. I don't know. No. Those are the three different choice words that mean so much, yet it's so hard for many to say it because they feel like they're weak. They don't want to give up something or give that impression that, what else don't I know, but if you say it in the right way, like, hey, Mr. Prospect, listen, that is a great question. I don't really know the answer to that, but here's what I'm going to do to you. I've got a lot of connections who are very experienced in this area. I'm going to go to do my homework. I'm going to get in contact with them and have them reach out to you. And then we'll have a discussion, to find out, if these options or alternatives are going to work for you, instead of saying yes and you feed them bullshit. And the next thing you know, you get caught 2-3 weeks later, you're done. Your integrity is gone. Your credibility is done.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's honestly beyond repair because as you know, this people think it's a big industry. It's very micro. It's coast to coast, even globally, people find out pretty quick and you're only as good as your word,
Right. And the people who can attest to your capabilities. That's why it's always good to get those references under your belt, so that, hey, if you don't believe me, you can reach out to someone, so you can look at my profile, check me out, because you know what? I just checked you out and I know all about you and your company. I would strongly recommend that whoever you do business with, that you do the same thing, because you want to know that person. You want to know that company and their full capabilities and whether or not their niche is going to meet my needs. And if you're able to do that, then, now you're looking at some type of cohesive
Yes.
relationship where you're congruent and you're seeing eye to eye. Instead of being this far out, you're right here, and you're a unit, you're one. And that's the position A that you need to be in. Now, you said that before about being uncomfortable and comfortable. So I'm going to put you in an uncomfortable position and love to hear your comments. So what do you like about TPZ and what don't you like about TPZ? And this is all good, because this is what builds long-term business relationships. And then with your team as well, I would strongly advise that you say the same thing to them to see where their head's at. What are they thinking? Are they on the same page as I am? And do they have the same goals and initiatives that I have to bring my business forward?
Yeah, sure. Honestly, I learned pretty quick what I really love about TPZ is, and it's going to sound so cliche, but I actually feel like I'm part of a family now.
That's good.
And it gets across the board. It's like, if it's bad news, good news, it doesn't matter. It's all, and I think it all stems from Wellington down. It's the, we have to be honest with ourselves. We're all working towards the same thing, and they all want everybody on the same page. It's constant growth, constant constructive criticism. And that's, to me, important, because I've worked for some big Fortune 500 companies, and if upper management and the members of the board are selfish or have wrongful intentions, it's going to trickle down. So that's what I would say is this: anybody who can work for this. And let me make this clear. I'm not just saying this because somebody within TPA Wellington can see this.
Right.
I'm a shooter. This really is the best company I've ever worked for. I have no need to lie about that. Okay. Yeah. And it's because of the fact that they let you have enough rope to hang yourself.
Yeah.
We believe in you. We've hired you to do your thing. If you fail, well, you did it to yourself. It's that simple, Now, the only thing that I don't like with TPZ is I really wish that the owner would throw me some assets in Western Canada. That's what I want. That's the only thing that I would say. Yeah, which everything I know is actually, I'm very excited with the fact that he's getting his own flatbeds out of Wisconsin. I told him, I said, Jason, because it's just so much you can do with a flatbed. A dry van's a dry van, but with a flatbed, there's just so much. He opens the door to LTO. You've got dedicated on that. You can throw a curtain side on it. You can cover up there's just so much, you open the market to Houston. You've got the Midwest, North Dakota, South Dakota freight going up into Canada, even along the West Coast into Oregon. So much metal coming out of Washington State as well. So I'm super excited about it. But that's the only negative. It's because, freight forwarding is very important, but when you have your own assets and you see a stamp on something, it's just a pride thing. I'm very proud to grow the company in Western Canada. That's, I've loved to partner with drivers, but when it's your own name, Jeff, it's that pride, see it on the road. They say, I did that. That's an actual TPZ truck that driver's making money because I found him business. That to me is important,
Yeah, no. And that's a good thing. That's a great problem to have when you're identifying a situation that you need help in. And Jason hears that, hey, I need assets out where I am. I've got work. I can put them. That's a great problem because you've got business going in there, and sometimes that can be a struggle because you don't want to cut yourself thin, right? Because you've got other customers and you're trying to do it. So, you go from the asset side to the broker side to keep that going. And then
I will say though, on the freight forwarding side, there is a lot less headache though, because once you've got the tender in and you've negotiated with your shipper and the carrier, you've agreed on a rate.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. It stops there. It's just invoicing now. You don't have to worry about your fuel. You don't have to worry about your maintenance. You don't have to worry about your e-logs, your safety, none of that. So I can also see the benefits of going pure freight forwarding,
Mhm.
you know. I can see both sides of it. I just, having worked for both asset and freight forwarding, I don't think one trumps the other. I think you need unison. You need them both, which is why you've probably seen a lot of carriers. They've started to open up internal brokerages because they've got capacity constraint.
Yes.
You can't service the biggest trucking companies in the world, still can't service 100% of the lanes. It's impossible.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And it's so funny that you bring that up because a lot of big asset carriers have a brokerage division. And when prospects say, oh, I only deal with asset-based service providers, well, guess what? Those asset-based service providers, they go to their brokerage department when they're thin on capacity to move your freight. So in essence, you're using a brokerage company. You know, I mean, when you really think about that. And
no, it's true.
Yeah, and those are
the legendary.
Right.
This is one of our partner carriers.
Right. And, you know, those are the things that you have to keep in the back of your head when you get questioned by these prospects, you know, well, we're not allowed to use brokerage companies. Hello, you know, it's like, you know, you give them the facts and then make them do the homework. I didn't know that. And then they look into it. And it kind of opens them up. You know, don't be afraid to say stuff that they don't want to hear, because those long-term business relationships are based upon, you know, integrity, honesty, and your credibility, and being able to say what they don't want to hear and definitely what they want to hear, because it's truthful, you know, and that's the only way to build them.
Well, I think it's also setting realistic expectations to the shipper right out of the get-go, you know. And like, before I even quote somebody's freight, like if I talk to somebody, or let's just say I send a blind email prospect, shipper comes back and says, hey Mark, thanks for your email, it caught my attention, here, can you quote this to this? I always respond, before I do any of that, I don't want to be your freight pimp. I want to be your partner. I want to work with you. Can we get on a call? And I want to know, what does your day look like? Because, you know, what are you really as a freight forwarder? You're a solutions provider. And I tell everybody, if you're going to choose sales, then you need to present yourself as an experienced specialist. A specialist ain't going to be somebody quoting freight from A to B. That a monkey can do that.
Right.
A specialist is going to say, so you've been doing it this way for 20 years, okay? Well, can I kindly tell you why you should do it a different way? And let me explain why. That's what a specialist does, and they won't take offense to that, because the more honest you are, they're going to respect you more because you were direct.
Right.
Nobody's going to get respect out of just being a yes man. You have to challenge and push shippers, because they're going to always tell you, well, this is the way we've always done it. Yeah, well, that's why you're in this position now, coming to me and every other freight forwarder, because you haven't found one that actually sticks, meaning nobody's actually made you happy.
Right. And you know what? That's what I call uncovering the hidden bank opportunities. If you dive into an operations, you know, I don't even discuss freight, you know, or anything like that. I'm not selling them freight when I get on the phone. I'm selling them experience, background, about logistics operations, and I ask the pertinent questions, you know, that will open them up to further a discussion. Oh, I didn't think about that, you know. And then they start thinking and saying, well, who are you? I never heard of you, all this other kind of stuff. I get all these phone calls. Well, yeah, I'm not one of those guys. You know, I've been in your position. I can say that. I've been in your position for 35 years.
Yeah,
no kidding. So I got the empathy. I understand what you're going through. You know, I don't want to waste your time, and I'm sure you don't want to waste my time. And those are the kind of conversations that you have to have. You know, it's just like when you're working for a company and you're steadfast and you have this vision of how things worked in the past, and say you got bored at that job and you still did fantastic, you left on great terms, you're like, I need a new challenge, I need something, and you go into that company and you're using the same perspective, the same knowledge and skill that you used in the prior, and it just doesn't work. you don't change your mind to fit their need. They need to fit your need, the way I always looked at it. And so if you walk from that and you say it's just not working, that's fine. I'll find that niche because you know that it works. It's just like prospecting. If something works, you got to be like a chameleon a little bit. You have to change just slightly, but you have to stay to, what your niche is, what your goals, what your objectives are, and what and
Yes.
stay down that path. Don't change, to submit to the shipper.
Well, and the other thing too is I find a lot of people that get in a freight brokerage, it's like, I know you're going to laugh because you have to have seen this through the years. It's so a sales guy starts out and he gets some crap load. Okay. Oh, I gotta go to ops. I got this load. Oh, this is great. This is great. It's like, okay, you don't even know what the dimensions of this thing are. You don't know how it's going to be loaded, And I also tell people too, like, even if you're well established, don't be afraid to even walk away from an opportunity at that time,
Yes.
because it may not. It could be multiple factors. It could be price isn't aligning. It could even be as simple as, you know what, shipper doesn't like talking to Mark, so I'm going to give it internally to say Jeff. They'll give you. I've seen it happen. Sometimes people's personalities. That's what people don't understand with sales is sometimes it just comes down to a personality thing. Not everybody gets along,
No.
you know. Uh, and I always try to tell like sales reps that you have to ask. Don't ask close-ended questions when you're prospecting. You need to ask open-ended because that's how you
Action.
create thinking.
Correct. And you want to be you. You don't want to fake it to make it and be someone that you're not.
Well, that's a big reason why I laugh when even in this 2023 there's this script garbage. I'm like, there's no emotion behind like if you get me, you, 30 other people in a day on a phone call, we could arguably each have a different personality. Well, that one script is not going to work for everybody. It's impossible. You have to think on your feet. You have to know how to impulse read the character of the person on the phone, and that's why I usually say when people say, well, I'm going to go for project management in college, or I'm going to go for procurement. I'm like, hey, that's so fine and good, but that ain't going to teach you how to actually service the shipper. So unless you're planning on doing a co-op placement, it ain't going to help you with, because this is still a dinosaur industry. I hate to say it, but it's the truth.
It is. And the thing is that what I tell people with the script, pretty much take it and throw it out the window, because I'll tell you what, no two shippers are the same. They are absolutely not the same, and what works for one will not work for the next guy. And to do your homework up front. Now, there's a lot of people that will agree to disagree that it's not worth doing your homework up front. It's too much time spent, and I would rather just make those phone calls, and if something comes to fruition, then I'll dive into knowledge, and then I'll start looking into that. But the way I look at it is, don't you want to be prepared for when you make that phone call so that you're on the same page, you understand who this person is, his background, his company, what they do, where they do it, why they do it, and when, than to be totally closed-minded and not know. You're just like going through the process and trying to get this prospect on board and just asking some questions that may not make sense, So I always focus on the large, big hitters, because that's what I like. A lot of people just like filling in their pipeline and get whoever they possibly can. But I don't work in the present. I work into the future. And
right.
What I do today, what is that going to do for me 6 months from now? Where's this prospect or customer going to bring me? Is the ROI, worth it? The time spent, the SG&A cost, what am I getting back in return for all the questions and all the follow-ups I'm doing on this one customer, or multiple ones that are really bringing in the revenue? You have to think about that all the time, Mark. You really do.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And listen, I've been there too, where 3, 4, 5 years, eventually you land the shipper that you've been trying to go after. It just takes time sometimes, and the biggest advice that I would give anybody who's starting out in this industry is I do think you're right. You have to do the research because, for instance, if you take a shipper that's located, let's say in a state, so let's say they're in New Jersey, okay,
Right.
and you're a resident of New Jersey,
Yeah.
and you find the area. Well, you could easily go to ops dispatch and say, hey, I got a question for you. Customer ABC, it looks like this is where their facility is located. Who do you think we're going up against potentially in this area? Now you've already got ops kind of triggered. Otherwise, you could be going to their current incumbents. You're not going to win the freight because now you're just going to be a whipping post. So then if you put together a tailored message to the shipper, then it says, hey, this is so-and-so from this company. I reached out to you because I think that our business practices align, not just personally and culturally, but business. And I have a pretty good hunch that this is kind of the carriers you're working with. Am I right? Now you're creating some urgency because now the shippers, well, who the hell is this guy telling me that he thinks he knows who I'm using and yada, yada. And that's how you start to get into that emotion. And a lot of salespeople, very black and white. Hey, so-and-so, are you shipping? What do you ship? Standard questions. Is it a full truckload? Is it cross-border? Is it line haul? Because I want to make big rips. That ain't going to give you success in this industry. It really, and the funny thing is we live in a day and age where warehousing, cross-docking, and international freight is booming. And yet I don't really hear anybody talking about it. It's still the same dry van freight. I'm like, buddy, you got to look at the bigger picture here. How is the freight even getting into this country? That's the bigger fish that you should really be going after,
Yeah. And one of the other things that open up from what I'm hearing from you is, if you get a prospect on the line and you start talking about carriers and everything, and he's still talking about, one of the biggest questions I would ask is, well, I see you're interested in what I have to offer. What's making you talk to me that your incumbent carrier didn't offer you?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, because that's the biggest question. Where are they failing that I can succeed? Pretty much, right? Because you don't want to duplicate that. And the other thing too is that, during your conversations, you want to know who their incumbent carriers are, and you're like, listen, I don't want to disrupt the apple cart by any means, so I'm asking this pertinent question because I wouldn't. Let's just say we don't do business. How would it make you look if I went to your incumbent carrier and said, hey, I'm bidding out this business and they're already doing business with you? I don't want to put you in that position,
No, it's true, yeah.
Yeah. So the thing is that there's so many different opportunities if you listen and talk less that are going to open up those additional.
Now, I will tell you one thing that I've done recently that worked on a project out in Western Canada in BC. They were telling me that they were working with a carrier and they were expressing. So I said, you know what? I said, here, I want to be a real trusted provider. And I said, don't take this the wrong way, but I need my drivers just as badly as I need you as a customer. Okay. So I said, why don't we get on a phone call? Let's do it. Let's get me. I already know who the carrier is. And what if we can continue to use the incumbent? They know your business, but let me do the work that maybe they're not skilled in. They're very good at getting the freight, delivering it, but you're having tracking and tracing issues. You're having some issues with customs. Why don't you let me do that? Small little brokerage fee, but you can continue to grow. And it worked really good. So sometimes I tell people maybe the answer too is not to outbid somebody else, but maybe just say, hey, maybe all you needed was just a little bit of a freight solution thrown in there, gives you visibility. Carriers love it too, because now they trust you as a broker. They're more inclined to give you more business because they already know they can trust you. You didn't steal the business. And the shipper loves it because they can continue to cut POs to the same driver that knows. I'm not saying it works all the time, but there's just the whole reason I'm saying this to you is I've seen way too much shadiness. And we've all been there when you call a customer and you say that you're a broker. It's like, if they don't hang up on you, you better have thick skin because you're going to hear it. And I think it's because it's all of the double brokering nonsense. It's all of the insane. Look what happened with COVID. I cut people out of my life that I knew that did this because of the insane ripping off of shippers that they did. I said, why would you be doing a 60, 70%? Oh, because you got to get in there while the timing is good. I said, yeah. And where the hell is your shipper going to be in 2 years from now? They're going to write your name in a little black book and you ain't getting another phone call. And guess what? Some of them lost their shirts because they didn't listen to what I was telling them, and their cash flows went out of line because carriers folded. long and behold, now they don't know
Yeah,
what
so
to
listen, that's a great segue with the pandemic and the economy the way that it is right now. So you're a branch manager. How many people work under you?
do. So we've recently downsized, which is a whole other
Right.
discussion. But usually anywhere between 1 to 3
Okay,
people.
so how do you get them through this bear market? What do you say to bring their spirits up when they are against, they're against the wall, with nobody having any freight? They need to hit sales quotas, get that revenue in that pipeline. How do you motivate the people under you?
Well, number one, I've always said this: you have to lead by example. So, if me being a manager, if I'm not grinding and staying positive, the rest of the office ain't going to stay positive and grind. So I always, come in happy dory. I could be pissed off for whatever reason. It could have nothing to even do with work. It's
Right.
got to stay at the door. It has to.
Yep.
But when like with freight volumes and stuff, I think the best way to motivate is to always have the opinion that you're just not looking for the freight that's currently moving right now. So you got to look at what's moving. Some of it's seasonality. I mean, retail, as you know, is taking a big hit. Consumers just don't have the deep pockets anymore to make those credit card purchases. So you got to look at more other essential items that are be a little bit more. And instead of, for instance, like, okay, I went to a Costco, which is similar to Price Club for you. So here's a Pepsi cup. So instead of going to Costco, why don't you say, where are they getting their cups from? Maybe I should call the cup company. Where are they getting this paper from? So that's what I try to tell my sales team, and it's always looking at it the different way. But you know what? You're always going to have moments in brokerage that beats you down. I don't care what anybody says.
And you can relate to it too. Oh,
but
you know what? Don't worry about that. I receive those kind of no's all day long too. So I get it. Here's what I do to try to get over that.
But the thing is, I don't know if you'll agree with this. But when you're in sales, everything is your fault. That's rule number one.
Yeah.
You have to understand, and the reason why is because sales generally get paid the most money. It's unlimited income potential, because if you don't have opportunities coming in, nobody has a job. Right. So that's why, as you tell, sales guy says to me, why is dispatch yelling at me and you're telling me my numbers aren't high enough and I'm not making enough money? Well, because you chose sales. But what does that mean? It means that you can write your own paycheck. So it comes with the territory. You're going to have to own everything. And it's fine if you can't own it, then you're going to have to do another job. But yeah, when you're in sales, the weather's your fault. The currency is your fault. Drivers are your fault. Everything is your fault when you're in sales.
You got to have full accountability. And one of the biggest questions I used to say to the people that worked under me, and they were like dumbfounded, and they always used the same reply. I was like, do you know who signs your paycheck? Do you know who signs your paycheck, Mark?
Yep.
The customer.
Yeah, of course.
It's not Jason. Jason has nothing to do with it, because if you don't have a customer and you don't have your pipeline that's getting filled all day long, you're not getting paid. It's as simple as that. So you want to know who the hell your customers are and what they do and how they do it. You want to embed yourself in there. You want that client for life status always in the back of your head. How am I going to keep this customer on board?
Well, and it's
a long-term time, because it costs you more to replace a customer than it is to keep one on board.
Well, I'm glad you said that too, because it just reminded me. Sometimes people too, I'm sure you've seen this, have to be careful, because they'll also rely on like 90% of their freight business on one shipper, which is also very risky. You're in my opinion, is you're better off having 100 shippers ship one load a month than have one ship 100 loads a month. That's just my opinion, because I've seen it happen. You got to be so careful, and then they fall asleep, they stop prospecting, and then all it takes is one RFP comes out or whatever, and you get outbid by 2 or 3%. There's your margins gone.
Right.
So now I wanted to ask you quickly, because I've never really done this in freight. What is your advice on referrals? Because I've never actually asked shippers for referrals, or maybe asking like reverse logistics, like, okay, so we've delivered to your shipper now. Would you be okay if I reached out to your shipper to ask them where they're shipping? Because I'm thinking that that might be a good segue to growing more trusted relationships. But I don't know how the shipper would necessarily, do you think they'd get offended by that? I guess it's a simple question. You just ask them, are you okay if I was to do this?
And I have a ton of them, and the reason why, and it's not my ego or anything. I just do my job because I love getting paid. So what I would say is, listen, would it be okay if you could give me a referral or recommendation? It seems like I've been knocking it out of the park for you over these last several months or last couple of years. It seems like we have a great working rapport. Let me ask you this. Is there any place that I failed in that maybe you just overlooked and didn't tell me? You have those things. We used to send out quarterly, hey, how am I doing kind of surveys, which basically had 5-6 different questions, gave our customers the opportunity to say, hey, you're knocking out of the park on this. I wish you had that. You suck at this. It gives them that opportunity to build that relationship and to give them what maybe you haven't had, or you didn't ask the right questions to prompt it. And that's like the survival thing that you do. So, I'm a firm believer in that that a customer has upstream and downstream. They're always
Right.
getting fed by somebody. So by asking that referral and saying, hey, listen, you know what? I've been moving your product from your vendor in Calgary, and I'm not currently doing business with them, but it seems like I'm knocking it out on your side. Would you mind if I reached out? And before I do, would you mind giving them like a heads up? Because they're probably getting a ton of calls, like a lot of other shippers out there. And I'd just like to have that open door. And I think it would benefit not just myself, but you and them at the same time. And try that. I mean, because why wouldn't they want? Because now more volume means a bigger discount. So everybody's going to, at least the way I look at it, right? Everybody's going to be a win-win situation on that. So why wouldn't they want to do that? And then if they didn't want to do that, why? Ask the question. Why not?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's why I asked you. Because, like, listen, the learning stops the day you're in the ground. Until you're in the ground, you're learning every day.
Every day. If you're not learning, you're not moving forward. And
So,
you're going to be left behind rather quickly.
So, and that's okay. So I did have 2 questions prepared for today. So that was the first one. The second one that I want to, and I'll tread lightly here because I'm not trying to insinuate that you're much older than me, but I want to ask you because, me at 36, I'm still fairly young, still fairly new. I got so much to learn. What advice would you give to navigate an individual or somebody that works for you that's very close-minded, that's not willing to take the constructive criticism? Is it a hard pass on that person? And if they're not willing to listen, it is what it is? Or is there certain ways to navigate to get that person? And it could be multiple things. It could be like, maybe I have somebody who's 10 years older than me that feels like, well, who's this punk kid in this chair that's telling me what to do? Could also be somebody who's younger that feels, I don't know, maybe self-entitled because it's a certain generation that acts that way. So I just thought I'd pick your brain on maybe what you've encountered with that or how you navigate it.
Yeah, and thanks for the question. That's an awesome question, by the way. The way that, again, we're all individuals here. The way that I managed was always an open door policy. And you have to be, in a manager's position, you have to be like a psychologist. You have to be able to adapt to different personalities because not 2 personalities are the same. And you have to have that chameleon type style of managing, being that don't be afraid to ask them, hey, you know what? I noticed this. I've been out here on the floor. What's up? And talk to me. What's happening what's happening to you is between me and you. I want to see you succeed. Talk to me. What's going on? How can I help you to be better than where you are? Where do you think I'm failing as a manager? Are you getting everything that you need from me? Be that open, honest manager. They're more important than you are. You put yourself way in the back. You mean nothing. They mean everything, because you're only as good as the people who work for you. Okay, so you have to put them on that pedestal. Being a boss telling them what to do doesn't get you anywhere. Being a leader and understanding and having that empathy, and getting to know them personally instead of just an associate that works for you is really, really important. So take them off the floor. Have them come into your office, because you never criticize or say anything to an employee on the floor in front of other employees. Never, ever, ever, man. That's a sin. So you bring them in the office and say, sit down, and no, this isn't bad. I just want to have a conversation with them, make them feel at ease and be very empathetic. They may have family problems. I've had that before, where I had a woman working for me and her husband didn't want to work anymore, and she loved working for me. And I just saw things weren't going, and she told me, it's very involved. I'll just leave it there. But because that's the kind of thing that you have to have with your staff. Always have an open door policy. Make them feel like it's okay. And if you're in the middle of doing something, Mark, I don't care how effing important it is, you drop it like a stone. Because if they walk through your door, it's important. It's important, for them, not for you, but for them, and I shouldn't say not for you. Yeah, it's important because they walk through your door. But what I mean is that something's on their mind. They need to settle it right then and there. Don't push them off and say, give me 5-10 minutes. Right then and there, instantaneous. And then you'll be able to see them, and you'll start getting on their own personal level. It's not about age. It has nothing to do with that. It's about understanding where you're coming from, where they're coming from.
Right. Yeah. I saw the remark here from more wise advice from Bill Robinson, called the 4 Ps: praise in public and punish in private. I like that.
Yeah.
I guess he's describing the way that I discipline my children.
Yeah, Bill's a good guy.
Yeah, he is.
Many different times. And
we
can agree to disagree, and that's what's good. Because we've seen so much stuff in this industry. It's pathetic.
Well, that's
we can write a 1,000-page book on this. Maybe that's
but that's thanks for answering that question, because I'll tell you one thing that I, not so much from shippers, but from people who've been doing this for a long time. You always cross, and I don't know if there's maybe just life choices, whatever, but you sometimes, like in my age group, you do get some of that sometimes. And it's, again, who's this young punk kid that's coming up that thinks he knows everything and this and that. And sometimes you get obstacles when you have staff that are older than you, because now they're questioning everything that you're, doing. But I guess that's normal. And I heard years ago a saying that said, if people are uncomfortable by your success, it means you're doing something right. You need to keep pushing, And the other thing I heard was jealousy is confused admiration. And that really stuck to me. I heard that once when I was like 19 years old, and it always stuck with me. Because it's kind of true. If you're kind of envious of somebody, you kind of wish you had their life.
Right.
But all I've ever done is just listen. You have 2 ears for a reason. There's times to speak up, but I learned at a young age that if you listen, you take the criticism, whether it's from you or Jason or Bill or a customer or my wife, my kids. There's, like you said, there's importance. There's a reason why they're coming to you. You can't be vain. You have to listen. And I think that could be one of the biggest detriments to maybe people that are in sales or in trucking, is they take things too personally when they should take a seat back and say, you know what? I do have a problem. I do need to change. Because at the end of the day, that's the individual who's going to succeed.
That's it. And like when I was training people, I made it a point that I would lead them to the water, but I wouldn't show them how to drink it. Because
it's up
I would
to them.
never, ever, ever create something for somebody that was working for me to use. When you create it yourself, you build it, you work it, you're more accountable for it. You're more involved in it because it's yours. It's not his, it's not hers. It's yours. You developed it. As long as you get to the same results, goal and objective, I don't care how you do it, but here's the goal. Here's the objective. Figure it out. Give them pointers or her pointers and let them figure it out and go back and forth, but never show them how it's actually done, because that's how you develop people, by mentoring and coaching them the right way. Never do work for them. Tell them where they need to go, but let them choose the path. And
like you said too, it's okay to encourage mistakes. Mistakes are going to happen. That's how you learn.
Every day in logistics.
Oh boy,
You can't-
that's an hourly occurrence for me. By the hour, there's always something. I'm like, oh, maybe I should have done it a little bit differently, or maybe I should have,
It's all about
that
collaboration too. It's the biggest thing for success in any business, especially in brokerage, or even if you're a shipper, is that collaboration between the broker and the carrier, and the shipper, and having that mutual understanding of, hey, how do things click? Why aren't we meeting ends? Why are we so far off with our understanding? And this is a great segue, because I've got to go into this. You heard of the Carrier Broker Summit?
Yes, I did hear about that, and I'm trying to get my ass down there, because I think that's going to be one heck of a time to go down, man.
Yeah,
I really do.
I will be there. I'll be a speaker there on the 12th and 13th of October. Maximizing the freight broker and carrier relationships. What does a shipper think all the time? Because I've been on that side of the business for 35 years, and exactly that. And it's so important to build those relationships, because that's what's going to get you over to the other side. Really.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, real.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm not just saying this to promote you. I genuinely do believe that this is going to be a great event. I really do.
Are you going?
I've gotten no. What? Sorry, say that
Are
again.
you going?
I'm 90% sure that I'm going to head down there for that. I really do. Plus, it's a good time of the year to get out of Canada, get away from some of the cold weather. You know what I mean? I hate the winter. Yeah, it has been quite smoky here. From the fires, we get it from all angles, whether it's within Alberta or from, BC. It is what it is. It's a normal occurrence now. And I saw this article the other day too, which kind of ties into freight, because chaos drives opportunity. People need freight moved, especially during natural disasters. And they're saying how Canada, the climate with global warming is drastically changing. And they've noticed an uptick in a lot more tornadic activity. And apparently over the next 5 to 10 years, the amount of tornadoes in Canada is supposed to double. So if you think of that, that's scary for southern U.S. along Tornado Alley, because that means a lot more activity there. And I follow everything, because it all relates to freight now. The triple El Nino that we're in. I'm curious to see how produce is going to go into tropical fruit into the wintertime. What kind of natural disasters, hurricanes may be coming up into like New Orleans, Texas, Florida. It's all going to tie into freight.
And that's one thing, and I'll have that on my show in the near future. Vertical farming, and how that's really upsetting the supply chain in which we know it, how it operates. It hasn't been talked about a lot, but just because of the droughts in California, and a lot of the produce going south of the border into Mexico, and just all those disruptions, they're looking into it, and they have several of them that have been built right now, these giant ass warehouses that they're doing exactly that. And it's all automated, it cuts down the labor force as well. I mean, that's going to happen in the very near future too. So, those are all going to be subjects that I'm going to take on and discuss at later shows, and get the experts in there, because I'm not an expert in that area, nor do I want to be.
Right. No, but it's a valid topic that I can see why you want to dive into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I gotta say, thanks to my my sponsor, got a new sponsor, Total Connection. If you're looking for oil rig mobilization from one area to the next, or liquid bulk transportation, project cargo, or out of gauge cargo, or even NVOCC International Freight Forwarding, those are the guys that go to. They're a good client as well. And so I'm really happy that they came on board and believe in what I'm doing. So thanks, Lewis, on that. But hey, Mark, thank you so much for joining me today. I definitely want to have you back on. I enjoyed the conversation. I know I'm going to have Bill on one of these days too. He was actually my first one on my first show
Yes.
that came on board, and it's always a great conversation. And I have to hook up with Bill once again. So hey, I appreciate it, man.
No problem. No problem. I'm so blessed that, like I said when I first got on here with you before we started streaming, I'm just really fortunate that people such as yourself put up with my craziness and are willing to have me on a podcast. It truly does mean a lot. It really does, Jeff.
And I'll tell you what, you say your craziness, put another 20 or 30 years under your belt. And then, if I'm still around, let's have another talk. And you're not crazy. Trust me. You'll be crazy in the next 20 years.
I go to some of these.
I guarantee Bill will say that too.
I go to some of these freight galas, and my wife sees some of the people that are, been in this much longer than me, and she sees the camaraderie and shenanigans that goes on, and she kind of leans over to me and she's like, "Is it too late for you to find a new career? Because I don't know if I can handle that in 20 years from now."
Right? Exactly. Yeah. And the thing is, my takeaway before I end the show is that in logistics, do me a favor for your health. Don't take things personally and to heart. It will destroy you. Do not do that, because the logistics industry is not a welcoming industry. It's a profitable one, but there's more challenges and downfalls than upticks in it. And if you can get over those obstacles and break through those barriers, you will do fine. But don't take it here, man. Do not. It will eat you up and spit you out faster than ever. And I know that Bill will tell you the same damn thing. It's a great industry. I love it. Been in it for a very, very long time. I would not change my career for all the money in the world. I enjoy all the people I've met, the events that I've gone to, and what I get to share, in my later part of my career to help other people. Again, they're just options. They're alternatives, maybe a solution. Will you get the result out of that? That's up to you, how you want to take what I'm saying. You don't have to take anything that I say. You can make your own choices, but I'm just trying to give back a little bit from what I've received.
No, I understand. So, I do. Okay. Well, yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Thanks, buddy.
Yep, sounds good.
Have it. Another logistics life and lesson learned. Until next time.